The mysterious secrets of Ezekiel revealed, shocking prophecies that changed everything. Few knew what truly happened that night. The air crackled with tension in the dusty streets of Jerusalem. Hushed whispers fluttered like moths, drawn to the flickering light of hidden truths. It was a moment when the world teetered on the edge of chaos, and the voice of one man pierced the darkness. Ezekiel stood alone, his heart racing as visions filled his mind, swirling like a storm. He saw strange creatures, each with 4 wings and faces of a man, lion, ox, and eagle. Their eyes glistened with the weight of knowledge. Could they be messengers from God? The questions twisted inside him, igniting a fire of curiosity and fear. The sky above, painted with hues of purple and red, bore witness to prophecies that would shake the very foundations of their beliefs. What did these bizarre visions mean? Why had he been chosen? Ezekiel had been a priest, a man of God in a time when faith was frail. The nation was in turmoil, exiled and broken. Yet, here he was, the reluctant prophet, bearing messages that would leave people trembling. The weight of history rested on his shoulders like a crushing stone. Yet, when he spoke, his voice rang clear. As he shared his message, the crowd gasped collectively. The air thickened with disbelief and dread. The valley of dry bones, a vision of resurrection. He cried, his voice echoing against the stone walls. Beneath his fervor lay a deep truth: what would happen next? Could these lifeless bones stir to new life? The unanswered questions hung like shadows above them, casting uncertainty into their hearts. Around him, faces twisted in fear and wonder. Mothers clutched their children, while the elders exchanged worried glances. What if Ezekiel was right? What if their fate was sealed? He felt the weight of their eyes, their hopes and their despair binding him to a higher purpose. And deep down, a part of Ezekiel questioned his own understanding. Could he truly speak the will of God? As each prophecy rolled off his tongue, a small voice whispered, "What if you're wrong?" The tension surged, firing up the air. He paused, scanning the crowd. Silence enveloped them, thick and heavy. The world seemed to hang in that breathless moment, teetering between belief and doubt. As he opened his mouth to continue, doubt gnawed at him. The flickering flames danced wildly, as if fighting against the unknown. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Ezekiel felt the weight of the moment stretch like a taut bowstring. Doubt lingered on the edges of his heart, yet behind it lay a fire urging him to press on. The silence of the crowd was as palpable as the dust settling around them, and the uncertainty of their hearts mirrored his own. What would the visions calling to him say next? With effort, he drew a deep breath, allowing the cool night air to quench the heat that burned within. Then, he began to speak of the valley. These bones represent not just the dead, but the very essence of our nation, lost, scattered, and forgotten. The words flowed from him, stirred by an unseen hand. Can these bones live again? Only by the breath of the Almighty can they be restored. As he spoke, a young girl in the front thrummed with anxiety. Her wide eyes glistened, searching for hope. In her gaze, he saw a reflection of all those who sat listening, eager for a sign, a promise whispered across time. Ezekiel's heart clenched. Could he deliver the hope they so desperately needed? Around the valley, painted in shadows, murmurs gave way to cries. Do not despair. The cycle is not yet complete, he urged, feeling divine strength coursing through him, propelling him toward a deeper understanding of his calling. I see a vision of restoration, a coming together of a people once divided and broken. There is a path to redemption. As he declared these prophecies, the ground beneath them shuddered as if responsive to the very words he uttered. The bones, once lifeless and dry, shimmered faintly with a strange light. A wave of astonishment broke over the crowd. Had they indeed heard him correctly? This moment held an electric charge, and disbelief was palpable, but so too was an inkling of faith blossoming in their hearts. Yet, within the cacophony of voices, doubt still whispered vigorously to Ezekiel. He turned inward, yearning for a deeper understanding. Was he merely a vessel, or had the visions purposed a more profound challenge for him? Perhaps the Lord had a greater design for their future, one clouded in mysteries yet to be revealed. Then a figure emerged from the crowd, a man imposing in stature with a face marked by wear and worry. Ezekiel, is it true? Can hope be restored to a people so abandoned? He called, his voice thick with desperation and yearning for answers that danced just out of reach. The gathered multitude shifted, tension rising anew. Cashing in on the weight of the moment, Ezekiel sought the hidden layers beneath the surface. "O Son of Man," he pondered, invoking a title he had heard in his visions, what if the rebirth of our nation requires not only divine breath but also our willingness to embrace a new way? The question hung in the air, ethereal yet unyielding. What sacrifices must they make? What truths must they confront to allow this transformation to unfold? He felt the call to dig deeper, not just for the sake of prophecy, but for the people he sought to uplift. Ezekiel hesitated as the crowd held its breath, eyes wide with expectation. Could they, too, understand the call to transformation? Or were they merely spectators in their own fate? The power of the moment modified yet remained unresolved, a symphony of hope intertwined with despair. As the flickering light danced upon their anxious faces, Ezekiel was left to ponder the implications of his revelations. Would the bones indeed rise, or was it merely a reflection of their innermost desires? Who would truly take that first step into an unknown future? In the stillness that followed, a new question echoed in his heart. Would they choose to believe in a future they could not yet see? As the murmurs of the crowd ebbed, like the retreating tide revealing hidden treasures of the shore, Ezekiel knew the moment teetered on the brink of something profound. He scanned the faces illuminated by the dim light, each one a testament to the struggles and longings of a people lost in the corridors of despair. The faint shimmer of the bones seemed to pulse in tandem with the collective heartbeat of the assembly, resonating with a longing for renewal. "Can these bones live again?" he repeated, this time more to himself than to them, allowing the weight of the question to echo within his spirit. What did it take for dry bones to come alive again? What was necessary for a broken nation to revitalize and reclaim its identity? An answer danced just beyond his grasp, hiding within the layers of his visions, cloaked in layers of divine mystery. A sudden rustle swept through the ranks, drawing his gaze toward the man who had spoken earlier, whose face was now illuminated by a flicker of hope. "Ezekiel, tell us," he implored. "What shall we do? We are waiting on the brink of despair. Our temples are destroyed, our homes in ruins. What restoration can come from such desolation?" Ezekiel felt the urgency of the question pulse in his chest. He turned, seeking a deeper source of wisdom from the visions embraced by the stillness of the valley. To restore is not merely to revive, he began slowly, choosing each word with care. It requires the willingness of every soul, the courage to face the shadows that linger and to release the chains of past grievances. He could see resistance flaring in the eyes of some, those anchored to the familiar pain and grievances rather than the intangible allure of change. But with others, a spark ignited, flickering in the shadows of their doubt. "But how do we breathe life into what has long since been buried?" came another voice, now trembling yet insistent. "I believe," Ezekiel responded, his voice steadier as he felt the Spirit's guiding hand forge a path through the uncertainty. "It requires a coming together, the gathering of each fragment of trust, respect, and understanding. Even the smallest of bones must find its place in the great and beautiful design." As he spoke, visions swirled in his mind, images of the bones aligning, of sinew knitting together, of flesh encompassing the skeletal structures, ultimately yielding to the breath of God. There was a promise, not merely of physical restoration but of spiritual awakening. "We must be willing to embrace each other in our vulnerability," to share our stories, to lean into the currents of healing. The crowd was enveloped in silence again, their faces a mosaic of contemplation and struggle. Ezekiel felt the enormity of the challenge resting heavily upon their shoulders. But can this truly happen? The man asked again, hope slipping slightly into uncertainty. A distant rumbling echoed across the valley, as if the earth itself pondered the weight of Ezekiel's words. It prompted him to reflect deeper. There is always a chasm between vision and reality, he said thoughtfully. Transformation does not occur without sacrifice. What we build anew will not come without effort, pain, and perhaps even the relinquishing of our sense of control. The crowd shifted, beginning to sense that if change was to happen, it would test the very fabric of their devotion. Each would be called not only to receive but also to give, to break the cycles of despair that had held them captive for too long. Ezekiel felt the pressure envelop him, a surge of intention mingled with apprehension. Would they rise together, ready to forge a new beginning, or would fear hold sway? Before him stood a tapestry of souls, each with their own path and battles. As he beheld them, he was struck by a revelation, one that carried an urgency that could not be ignored. The challenge before us is to seek not only our own renewal but that of the whole. None can claim resurrection alone. The torches flickered as the wind stirred, drawing forth an unsettling thought that trembled on the edges of his understanding. Could they see the magnitude of what lay ahead? Would they dare risk the comfort of their despair for the unknown possibilities of healing? In the stillness of the moment, the question loomed larger than life itself: what burdens must they shed to tread the intertwined path of restoration and reconciliation? The silence hung thick in the air, reverberating with unspoken fears and latent hopes. Ezekiel felt the charged atmosphere around him, sensing that something beyond words hovered, waiting to seep into the hearts and minds of those gathered. He gazed out again at the remnants of a once proud nation, their faces akin to the fragments of bone scattered across the valley, a somber testament of loss yet quietly whispering their potential for greatness. As he attempted to orchestrate his thoughts, a sudden revelation pierced the veil of his understanding. Could the bones symbolize more than just the people? What if they were a living metaphor for the very spirit of the nation itself, a spirit fragmented and estranged but destined for unity and revival? A surge of clarity washed over him as he took a breath, inhaling the weight of the moment. Listen closely, my brothers and sisters, he began, his voice steady like the roots of an ancient tree. The valley we find ourselves in is not merely a grave for our past but a womb for our future. Just as a seed must struggle to break the soil, so too must we wrestle with our identities to emerge anew. Our restoration begins not here but from within. The man who had first spoken, his expression earnest but riddled with doubt, leaned closer. But Ezekiel, the wounds run deep. How can we bind those scars and still find the courage to grow together? How can we trust again? Ezekiel contemplated the depths of their shared anguish. It would not be enough to merely uplift their spirits with the promise of revival, they must confront the reality that had left them shattered. Trust, he responded softly, is born from vulnerability, from sharing our grief and acknowledging our brokenness. Without this sharing, how can we hope to heal? He turned his eyes to the bones once more, and in them, he saw the possible alignment of a community reclaiming not only its past but sculpting a future in concert. The breath of God is not merely for individuals but a great wind that beckons the entire body, a community ready to awaken. If we breathe together, we will synchronize our hearts and minds, and from that harmony, life can flourish. Yet doubt lingered as a shadow cast upon their eagerness. A voice rose from among the crowd, this time a woman with eyes reflecting the hardships of a widow and mother. And if we do not succeed? If we grapple with our fears and find ourselves still empty, still desolate? Ezekiel felt the weight of her despair. In our darkest moments, where we see ourselves most hollow, there lies the greatest treasure of faith, a faith that endures even when the promise is obscured. Our journey will not be linear, we will face setbacks and moments of faltering. But it is within these trials, where we are stripped bare, that the true essence of our calling will begin to emerge. Murmurs of acceptance mixed with uncertainty rippled through the crowd. A storm of conflicting emotions brewed within the hearts of all gathered, the yearning for unity battling the powerful grip of fear. Ezekiel spread his arms wide, inviting all of them into this moment of shared humanity. Will you walk this path together? Will you commit your heart and soul to the labor of love, knowing that we will be forged through both pain and joy? In that moment, the winds shifted again, carrying with them the scent of promise, a hint of divine breath that rippled through the valley. Yet, Ezekiel sensed an unsettling truth beneath the surface. What if their resolve faltered? What if despair proved stronger than hope? He felt the heaviness of the looming question, hanging like a cloud laden with rain. Could they cultivate a spirit of resilience capable of weathering the storms ahead? Could they embrace the mysterious ways of the divine, allowing themselves to be transformed? As the sun dipped lower on the horizon, casting golden rays upon the parched earth, Ezekiel was ignited by one final reflection: if fear threatens to bind us, can we choose to allow our collective spirit to break those chains, finding freedom in our shared fragility? The air stirred, as if alive with anticipation, a reminder that the new dawn approached. Ezekiel stood before the gathering, now full of grappling minds and open hearts, firmly believing that revelation awaited them like a dormant seed lying in the fertile soil of possibility. His gaze swept over the assembly, each face telling a silent story of struggle and quiet strength. Brothers and sisters, he declared, the authority of his voice deepening as it carried into the valley's expanse. The path ahead is shrouded in mystery, yet it is through that very mystery that we shall find our divine purpose. The voice of God often speaks in riddles, and sometimes, the key to understanding lies within the questions we dare to ask. With those words, Ezekiel perceived the rising tension in the crowd, a blend of eagerness and trepidation. Heavy brooding lingered among them, layers of apprehension laid upon the foundation of hope. A young man, his brow furrowed, stepped forward with heartfelt urgency. But what if the mystery is too great? What if we find ourselves lost, wandering through the darkness without a guide? There was a resonance in his voice, capturing the sentiments that coursed through every soul present. Ezekiel felt the weight of this young man's words. Loss is an inevitable part of the journey, he acknowledged gently. Yet, in every shadow lies a glimmer of light waiting to illuminate our path. Have you considered that it is perhaps in our seeking, our grappling with uncertainty, that we truly discover our strength? The pulsating hope in the valley began to shimmer like the fading rays of sunlight. As the sky transformed from vibrant gold to a deepening indigo, Ezekiel sensed a stirring within him, an invitation to delve deeper into the hearts assembled before him. Do you wish to hear the secrets that the Holy Spirit longs to impart? Do you crave the understanding that may lead us from despair to rebirth? A collective nod spread through the assembly, reinforcing their commitment to understanding. After a pause, he continued, in the scriptures, we are often reminded that God crafts our stories in complexity. Parables reveal truth through imagery, visions come upon us clothed in enigma. At once, the valley fell silent, each person hanging on Ezekiel's next words, a desperation for clarity binding them together. Not long ago, I experienced a vision, one that spoke of bones returning to life, of spirit breathing into our collective form. In my heart, I felt an urgency, a truth beyond the surface. It demands something of us, a response that goes beyond our fear into the realm of the divine. As he spoke, Ezekiel's mind wandered to the ancient stories of his people, the ones captured within scrolls faded by time, of trials faced and faith tested. They, too, were threads woven into a greater tapestry. Keep close to your hearts these tales of old. Each narrative carries the pulse of our existence and the murmurs of God, revealing the sacred connection between our identity and the mystical. His words, like seeds planted in fertile ground, resonated deeply. A ripple of shared understanding emerged, igniting sparks of realization. Consider a time when the impossible became possible, the parting of the Red Sea, the walls of Jericho falling. These stories were born from faith entangled with yearning determination that defied despair. Yet even with new conviction, a stillness remained, urging Ezekiel to probe further. What then, I wonder, is the hidden treasure within our struggles? What secret does our pain hold that beckons us deeper into the embrace of God? Silence enveloped the crowd, the weight of their shared grief pressing upon them yet again. An elderly woman, her voice wavering but full of wisdom, spoke softly. Could our scars, both personal and collective, be the very markers guiding us toward grace? Ezekiel was captivated by her insight. Indeed, the scars are not mere reminders of suffering, but rather of deep-rooted resilience. They have built our stories, shaping us into what we are meant to become. But can we embrace them, invite them into our journey for transformation? As twilight cloaked the valley, Ezekiel realized that they stood on the cusp of both vulnerability and power. Combined, their stories held the potential to unlock the divine narrative woven into the fabric of existence. Can we choose to see our scars not as indicators of failure but as beacons of hope, drawing us toward a divine purpose as we yearn for unity? As darkness settled over the land, the question hung heavy in the air, leaving the gathered audience to confront their fears anew. Would they allow the mysterious secrets of their struggles to guide them toward a destiny reborn, one fused with the promise of revival and resilience? Ezekiel sensed an awakening within the assembly, an unspoken desire to delve deeper into the mysteries that veiled their collective hearts. The night sky shimmered with stars, each one a silent witness to the convergence of souls seeking answers amid uncertainties. With a breath that steadied him, he continued, his words weaving through the fabric of the gathering like the gentle breeze rustling the leaves overhead. Look around you, my friends, he urged, gesturing to the faces before him. In this space, we are not merely individuals but a living tapestry, each thread a story interlaced with dreams, anguish, and hope. What if these stories, when shared, could serve not only to heal our wounds but to illuminate the path ahead? As those gathered considered his words, Ezekiel drew upon a tale he held close to his heart, the story of a prophet who walked among them, whose burdens and revelations mirrored their own. Remember the tale of Jonah, he said, the name invoking a ripple of recognition among the crowd. He was swallowed by darkness, entombed in the belly of despair. Yet, in the depths of that dark place, he cried out for deliverance, and therein lay the secret. Ezekiel paused, allowing the weight of Jonah's plight to settle. It was in that very darkness that transformation began. He marveled at how life can emerge from the coldest graves. What if, in our own belly of the whale moments, we find the spark of divine connection demanding to be born anew? What if our darkest nights hold a promise yet to be fulfilled? A murmur of understanding rippled through the assembly. Eyes widened as folks connected their own struggles with Jonah's journey, moments when they felt adrift, consumed. In the midst of despair, the cry for help becomes a sacred plea, pulling the veil back just enough to reveal the divine, continued Ezekiel. Like the prophet, we too may be called into the depths, not to be forsaken but to awaken to the very essence of God within our trials. An older man, known for his stoic demeanor, stood up, his voice trembling with truth. Yet, how does one reconcile the silence in the depths? How can we trust that God hears when we feel utterly lost? His question struck a chord with the assembly, unveiling layers of vulnerability. Ezekiel looked deeply into the man's eyes, feeling the earnestness of his plea. The silence, dear brother, is often what draws us into a deeper communion with the divine. God does not promise the absence of darkness, instead, the promise is His presence within it. Perhaps, it is through this silence that we are beckoned to listen to a truth beyond the clamor that fills our lives. With each word, Ezekiel witnessed an unraveling of fears, each revelation kindling the flames of courage. Reflect on Elijah, who didn't find God in the tumultuous wind or the quaking earth but in the still small voice that spoke tenderly to him afterward. It's our inner stillness that invites clarity amidst the chaos. As the moon ascended higher into the sky, casting a gentle glow upon the assembly, Ezekiel charged them with a thought. In this sacred space of shared stories and struggles, let us ask ourselves, what can we surrender to the mystery? What burdens do we carry that might be transformed into vessels of purpose, illuminating not just our lives but the lives of those around us? The crowd pondered, their hearts softly stirring with possibilities unspoken, filled with hope and trepidation in equal measure. Ezekiel felt it was time for a moment of introspection. Take this time, my dear friends, sit with your questions, your pains, and your yearnings. Let the mystery envelop you, for it may be in the stillness of your spirit that God's calling becomes clear. As they entered that sacred silence, a profound question began to echo in the far corners of Ezekiel's mind. If pain can be a pathway into transformation, how do we nurture the strength to embrace the painful moments, trusting that they will lead us not to despair, but toward the divine reclamation of our stories? As the assembly lingered in contemplative silence, the cool night air wrapped around them like a comforting cloak, fostering a space ripe for revelations. Ezekiel's heart echoed with an unexpected sense of urgency, as if an unseen presence lingered just beyond their perception, waiting to unveil deeper mysteries. In that stillness, he felt an insistent whisper beckoning him toward greater understanding. "Brothers and sisters," he began again, his voice bringing forth a gentle ripple through the assembled multitude. "What if we ventured further into the stories of our hearts? What if our pains and dreams held within them elusive secrets meant to illuminate not only our own journeys but the pathways for those yet to seek the light?" His words stirred a soft rustling among them. There was an inherent understanding in their collective gaze now, a silent agreement to peel back the layers of their individual experiences. A young woman stepped forward, her eyes bright with the glimmer of unspoken burdens. "But how does one start to unveil these secrets? When the weight seems too heavy, and the fear of exposure mounts?" "The journey begins with acceptance," Ezekiel replied, allowing the tenderness of the moment to settle around them. "Embrace your truth, however jagged it may be. The essence of our stories lies not in their perfection but in the rawness of our humanity. Like the ancients before us, we must honor our struggles as sacred ground, a place where transformation enters like morning light through cracks in the darkness." He searched the crowd, keenly aware of the diverse array of backgrounds and stories represented in their midst. Consider Job, a man who endured unimaginable loss and suffering. He did not shy from his pain but rather brought it forth in honest lament, yearning for answers. In those very introductions to his anguish, he inadvertently opened the door to profound dialogue with the Creator. As the firelight flickered, illuminating faces reflecting a mosaic of emotions, another voice rose from the assembly, a younger man, hesitant yet emboldened by the weight of his thoughts. "But what if we fear the answers? What if revealing our innermost selves only leads us further into despair?" Ezekiel felt the nuance of this truth. Fear often lays a heavy shroud over the most coveted revelations. "It is in that fear," he responded solemnly, "that we may find our greatest strength. Our vulnerability serves as our pathway to connection with each other and with the divine. Remember, growth often requires the embracing of discomfort. It was in the Garden of Gethsemane that even the Son of Man wrestled with his own fears, yet in his surrender, the fruits of salvation blossomed." The assembly held their breath, contemplating the depth of what was being laid bare. The myriad of hesitations, the weariness from sorrow, the threads of their lives began to intertwine with the ancient narratives of struggle and hope that had been shared. "Perhaps," Ezekiel continued, "we might ask ourselves what we truly fear about unveiling our stories. Is it rejection, misunderstanding, the risk of bringing forth pain anew? Or is it simply the daunting prospect of being truly seen in our brokenness?" As he reflected on his own fears, he felt an electrifying affirmation echo within him, a conviction that such truths were not meant to be confined to the shadows. In our honest confessions, we cultivate intimacy. It is through these acts of unveiling that we create a sanctum where healing can flow, illuminating the darkened corners of our hearts where grief and joy coalesce. Pausing for effect, Ezekiel's voice softened into a whisper, a reverent invitation. "What if, by sharing the mysteries hidden within our own hearts, we not only uncover our paths but also illuminate the way for others still navigating their own darkness? What light can emerge when we dare to be vulnerable?" As this question lingered in the night air, a profound silence enveloped the assembly once more. Each heart beat as one, reflecting on the uncharted territories of their souls. Ezekiel felt a gentle stir within, sensing that the seeds of tenacity and courage were being watered in this sacred gathering. What profound mysteries await revelation when we dare to embrace our own narratives, even if shrouded in fear? What kind of transformation might emerge when we recognize that in being vulnerable, we are not merely sharing our burdens but also inviting the light of the divine into a world yearning for connection? Ezekiel stood amidst the assembly, contemplating the silence that had fallen upon them, woven tightly with threads of contemplation and anticipation. It was a silence that thrummed with potential, a pregnant pause before the birth of perhaps a great truth or revelation. The embers of the fire danced like bright stars against the darkening sky, casting fleeting shadows that mirrored the uncertainties not yet spoken aloud. As he surveyed the faces turned up to him, illuminated softly by the glow, he recalled his own journey, each sorrow, each joy a stepping stone leading him deeper into understanding. Consider this, he beckoned gently, within each of us lies a narrative unlike any other, drawn from the depths of our experiences. History reveals time and again that suffering, when embraced through the lens of faith, can lead to extraordinary transformation. Look to Joseph, who, from the depths of despair, emerged wielding wisdom and power far beyond his years. He gestured toward the stars, glowing softly in the vast expanse above. When one stands under this cosmic tapestry, one must ponder, are we not all threads within this grand design? Each story interwoven, bearing witness to the divine's unfolding purpose? A murmur of agreement rippled through the assembly, yet a shadow lingered, whispering doubts of what sharing their truths might invoke. It was Miriam, a wise woman with silver-streaked hair, who spoke next, her voice imbued with the weight of her life's many seasons. But Ezekiel, how do we reconcile our truths with the pain they carry? How do we listen to the echoes of our past without faltering in despair? Ezekiel nodded, respecting the depth of her inquiry. In the quiet moments of reflection, we find a sacred alchemy within our tales. Imagine the Israelites crossing through the Red Sea. Each footfall on the dry ground mirrored their collective courage to leave behind what had tethered them in chains. They stepped into the unknown, guided by faith. Yet it was their moment of trembling desperation that led to their liberation. The assembly remained still, pondering. It was a moment laden with an invitation, an opportunity to ponder their own chains. Our truths, he continued, however fraught, can be the catalysts of our freedom, a passageway through despair to an understanding of who we truly are meant to be. As the night deepened, the cool air filling their lungs became a balm, almost palpable. And yet, what of the fears that accompany our stories? What if our shared burden only deepens our wounds? This question came from Daniel, the youngest among them, innocence still woven into his brow. Ezekiel considered Daniel's query, touched by its sincerity. Ah, Daniel, therein lies the crux of our journey. The act of unveiling ourselves takes courage, yet it nurtures community. In the shared space of vulnerability, we bear witness to one another, our laughter dances with our sorrows, creating an empathetic bond that is heavenly and healing. He stepped closer, lowering his voice to a solemn murmur. Have you ever pondered that our burdens may not simply be for ourselves? What if the stories we long to share serve as guiding lights for others? When we bravely rise to speak our fragments of truth, we whisper to fellow souls who search for solace. We become the lanterns illuminating the path through darkness. Ezekiel then paused, allowing his words to settle like the falling leaves around them. Each moment of sharing can be an act of prophecy. Can we not envision a world transformed, as our voices resonate in unison, creating a symphony of stories that celebrate life in its entirety, each note rich with joy, each rest filled with lessons learned through suffering? As the assembly absorbed his reflections, Ezekiel sensed the stirring within their hearts reaching a crescendo, a communal heartbeat of revelation. Yet, he felt an underlying current, a challenge yet unmet. Thus, I ask you, he urged gently, what obstacles remain unexamined within you? What secrets clutch tightly at your spirit, awaiting release? How might you step into the light and co-create stories that echo beyond your time, offering hope to those yet to embark on their journeys? With the question hanging in the air, the assembly remained hushed, grappling with the provocations of their own souls. Each was faced with the choice to either embrace the unveiling of their truth or retreat back into the shadows of quiet despair. What might they discover if they allowed their stories, in all their raw authenticity, to emerge? What uncharted territories of truth awaited their courage? As the assembly remained caught in the web of their contemplation, the stars above seemed to shimmer with an otherworldly light, casting a soft glow that danced upon their features. Ezekiel's heart swelled with compassion for each soul gathered, sensing their struggles, their dreams, and the weight of their untold stories. The flickering fire crackled like the pulse of life itself, urging them onward, whispering promises of revelation that lay just beyond their grasp. Suddenly, the air shifted as a cool breeze swept through the clearing, stirring the embers and sending a shiver down Ezekiel's spine. It was as though something ancient reawakened around them, an energy that pulsed and resonated beneath the surface of their gathering. The winds carried with them the echoes of ages past, resonating with echoes of longing and the faint reverberations of divine whispers. "Listen," he urged, raising his arms slightly, as if conducting an unseen symphony. "Can you feel it? The spirits of our ancestors, perhaps, urging us to speak. They beckon us to unearth what has long lain dormant in our hearts." Miriam leaned forward, her brow furrowed, wrapped in curiosity and trepidation. "What do you mean, Ezekiel? Are we not to focus on our own stories? What could the past hold for us now?" Ezekiel offered her a gentle smile, the warmth of understanding flooding his chest. "Ah, dear Miriam, our histories are threads that intertwine with the present, weaving a beautiful tapestry of existence. Just as the Israelites looked back at their forebears to find strength, so too must we not shy away from the legacies that shape our truths. There is a divine wisdom that flows through the ages, waiting for our hearts to uncover it." Consequentially, Daniel's wide eyes reflected both fear and excitement, his youthful spirit hungered for answers. "Then what must we do? How do we tap into those mysteries? Surely, we cannot simply summon the past." Indeed, Ezekiel nodded, and yet, in our willingness to listen, we may invite those mysteries to speak. Allow the stories of our ancestors to breathe through us. Hold space for the layers of grief and joy. It is this sacred engagement that can unlock the most profound lessons. Consider the moments of despair each of them faced. Did they not also yield resilience and revelation? As he spoke, the assembly shifted, faces softening, bodies leaning forward, as if drawn into the deep wellspring of connection that throbbed in the air. Each breath held the promise of discovery, as the veil thinned between their existence and the echo of ages. "Let us meditate together upon our lineage," he proposed, his voice steady. "Close your eyes and envision the stories that have brought you here. Imagine the struggles faced by those who came before you, the trials, the sacrifices, and hold space for their spirits. Invite them to speak to you, to guide your steps." A hush fell upon the gathering as they closed their eyes, inhaling the cool night air thick with possibilities. In this moment of silence, something profound took shape, a whisper in the dark, gentle yet powerful, unfurling like petals of a flower yearning for sunlight. Ezekiel listened, enthralled, as he felt the energy shift, sensing layers of stories knitting themselves anew within the hearts of his companions. Murmurs of connection arose, a symphony of voices rendered simply as one. With each passing breath, they attuned deeper to the lingering secrets of their lineage, perhaps even touching the mysteries that awaited revelation. But doubt flickered in the back of Ezekiel's mind as he peered into their unified consciousness. What darkness or hidden fears arose in the shadows of those stories? What burdens might surface, unbidden, leaving a residue that clung to their spirits? As he contemplated the gentle flow of their meditative space, the fragility of their vulnerable unveiling left him reflecting on the weight of what awaited them. Just before the stillness threatened to deepen into a chasm, Ezekiel's voice cut through softly, reverent. "What do our stories reveal of the divine right? Now, as we stand together and listen, what truths may we uncover that will guide us into the future? What might we learn from those timeless echoes that still resonate within us?" With this lingering question, a flicker of anxiety intertwined with hope lingered in the air, charting the unmarked paths that lay ahead as they embarked on this sacred unearthing of wisdom. What revelations might await them as they ventured deeper into this dialogue between the past and the present, seeking understanding not only for themselves but for the community yet to come. In the cool embrace of the night, a profound silence enveloped the valley, thick with anticipation as Ezekiel listened, his heart resonating with the collective yearning of the crowd before him. The flickering flames cast a gentle glow upon their faces, illuminating expressions marred by uncertainty yet awash in the embers of hope. It was here, at the fulcrum of uncertainty and faith, that they stood poised for transformation. Brothers and sisters, Ezekiel began anew, his voice steady and resonant. You have summoned forth the stories, a tapestry of tales both heavy and light, woven through the ages. And as we gather these threads, I feel a fire igniting among us, a divine spark begging for the air of connection. As faces turned toward him, their glimmers of understanding reflected a shared journey into the depths of their souls. But let me remind you, transformation is not a solitary affair. The prophets of old did not walk their paths alone, no, they were accompanied by a chorus of voices, an echo of shared humanity that resounds through the corridors of time. In that moment, he sensed a stirring, a flutter in their spirits, as if the very essence of their unbroken stories began to intertwine with a larger narrative. In our honest revelations lies the strength to transcend the doubts that once bound us. The legacy of our ancestors informs our present footing. It is in acknowledging our collective trials, the resignations and griefs, where the greatest revelations await. Ezekiel's gaze swept across the assembly, falling upon a young woman whose eyes shimmered with unshed tears. She had remained silent until now, yet her anguish rippled through the crowd, the pain of loss that marked her struggles echoed with the depth of a history not forgotten. What will become of us? She implored, her voice trembling yet clear. If we dare to unveil these burdens and confront our shadows, will we not merely deepen our suffering? Ezekiel felt an ache for her vulnerability. Ah, dear child, it is indeed a formidable leap to embrace the shadows of our hearts. But consider, within every shadow lies the potential for light. Like the brittle bones in the valley, it is the breath of God that enables them to rise. We must not fear the unveiling, instead, let us press into the unknown together, for the whispers of our pain carry more than despair, they carry the seed of divine healing. With each word, he saw the flicker of understanding grow in the assembly, illuminating those whose hearts longed for answers, those seeking the delicate balance between fear and faith. Let us not forget, he continued passionately, that we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, a lineage of warriors who faced their own battles. Did they not rise after the fall? Did they not reclaim their stories from ashes and dust? They are reminders that in relinquishing the weight of burden, we may discover freedom, the thrilling realization that transformation often clings to our willingness for vulnerability. As the night deepened, the air grew thick with the palpable energy of a burgeoning understanding, a moment where past and present collided. Breathe deeply, Ezekiel instructed, every breath igniting sparks of awakening. Let the stories of those who walked before us weave their strength into your being. Allow their triumphs and tribulations to become the pen in your hand, crafting new narratives for generations to come. Then, like a ripple in water, a soft murmur began to weave through the assembly, a quiet acknowledgement of their shared experience, their stories melding into a single voice, each note a heartbeat of the collective consciousness. In that moment, they felt an electric pulse, a magic woven from their courage to stand together, bearing witness to the mysteries that life unfurled. Ezekiel noticed shifts in the crowd. Eyes brightened as they shared glances filled with understanding. Past barriers of isolation fell away like autumn leaves, revealing fertile ground brimming with possibilities. Hope began to bloom, blossoming amidst shared burdens. I sense the divine connection stirring among us, he declared, raised arms inviting the energy of unity. Feel it surge as we commune, hearts intertwined by the sacred dance of transformation. In this space, we have a remarkable opportunity to embrace our collective truth and rewrite our destiny, not just for ourselves, but for this nation and the generations yet to rise. A resonant call echoed in the assembly, growing louder in unison. Their fears and sorrows transformed into a fiery resolve as they realized the power within them. We are no longer defined by mere histories, Ezekiel proclaimed, his voice a clarion call amidst their fervor. Tonight, we birth anew, the bones shall rise, not as scattered fragments, but as a united whole, breathing life into a future sparkled with promise. With hearts ignited, they rose to their feet, embodying the streams of history flowing within their veins. They stood as kin, bound by the shared legacy of trials faced, embracing an emerging truth that healing is both a process and a commitment. As the stars twinkled above, a new understanding washed over the crowd. The darkness that once loomed now shimmered with possibility, an endless expanse inviting faith to fill the void. They felt the spirit of resilience rise, igniting their journey toward a shared destiny, where every voice mattered, and every story belonged. In that sacred convergence, Ezekiel smiled, his spirit buoyed by the strength and unity radiating from the assembly. He knew that within their collective determination, they had captured the very essence of God's promise, a renewal that defied despair, blossoming from brokenness, where bones not only lived but danced with unquenchable hope. Let us remember this moment well, he concluded, his voice reverberating against the valley's echoes. For in our unity, we have drawn closer to the divine, unveiling the secrets of our hearts and sealing the promise of transformation. Together, we shall rise, emerging from the depths stronger, reverberating the unique melody of each soul, a testament that from the depths of despair, we can carve pathways toward the brilliance of rebirth. With these final words, a fiery resolve enveloped the assembly like a wave of living water, quenching their thirst for hope and igniting their spirits for the journey that lay ahead. The stars pulsed above them, shimmering with the grace of divine affirmation, and in that moment, they felt an unbreakable bond forged not just among themselves but with all of creation. As the crowd dispersed, hearts aligned and dreams rekindled, they carried the revelations forward, the promise of bones that lived, resounding beyond the valley, into the echoing recesses of time. So the story continued, not in isolated whispers but in a chorus of voices, united for generations to come, powerful and everlasting, proclaiming the sacred truth: transformation is possible, and every soul matters. Every story holds the power to awaken.